The crimson Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as Sophia Oliver clutched her satchel of medical supplies, feeling the rough wood of the stagecoach bench beneath her skirts. It was 1878, and the journey to Winslow had already stretched longer than the promised 3 days. A qualified nurse from Boston, Sophia had answered the desperate call for medical help in the small but growing railroad town. The stagecoach lurched violently as gunshots pierced the air, followed by the driver's panicked shout. Before she could brace herself, the world tilted sideways, and Sophia's body was thrown against the wall of the coach as it careened off the dusty trail. Pain blossomed across her temple as darkness threatened the edges of her vision. The screams of the other passengers faded into a terrible silence broken only by the settling creaks of the overturned stagecoach and distant hoofbeats growing closer. With trembling hands, Sophia pushed aside the torn leather curtain and glimpsed the still body of an elderly passenger. Blood pooled beneath the gray-haired woman's head, and Sophia's medical training urged her to help, but her own body refused to cooperate fully. Summoning what strength remained, Sophia dragged herself toward the crooked door frame, now pointing skyward. Her white blouse was smeared with dirt and blood, her chestnut hair falling loose from its careful arrangement. The sounds of approaching horses grew louder as she clawed her way out of the wreckage, her skirts catching on splintered wood. The blazing sun blinded her as she emerged, crawling onto the hot, dusty ground. A shadow fell over her, and Sophia looked up to see a tall figure silhouetted against the harsh light. A man dismounted from his horse with fluid grace that spoke of a lifetime spent in the saddle. As her vision cleared, she saw a weathered face beneath the brim of a dusty hat, concerned blue eyes meeting her own. "Don't move, madam," he said, his voice deep and steady as he knelt beside her. Strong arms slid beneath her shoulders and knees, lifting her as if she weighed nothing at all. "I've got you now," the cowboy assured her, his expression grave as he assessed her injuries. "The others," Sophia managed to whisper, her throat dry with dust and fear. "Please, there are others inside." "My men are checking," he replied, nodding toward several riders who had appeared behind him. "I'm Ethan Hayes, foreman at the Rocking H. We heard the shots from our northern pasture." Sophia tried to speak again, but the pain in her head intensified and darkness claimed her consciousness. When she awoke, Sophia found herself in an unfamiliar room. Sunlight filtered through cotton curtains, casting a warm glow over simple but clean furnishings. She lay in a bed with crisp sheets, her traveling clothes replaced by a cotton nightgown. Attempting to sit up sent a jolt of pain through her head. "Easy now," came a woman's voice. "You took quite a blow to your head." An older woman with silver-streaked hair approached the bed, a kind smile on her weathered face. "I'm Martha Hayes. You're at the Rocking H Ranch. My son Ethan brought you here yesterday afternoon." "The stagecoach," Sophia said, memories flooding back. There was an attack. The other passengers, Martha's expression sobered. "Two didn't make it, I'm afraid." The elderly couple. "The drivers recovering at the bunkhouse took a bullet to the shoulder. The mail carrier's here too with a broken leg. My husband rode to Winslow to notify the sheriff." Grief washed over Sophia. She'd been seated across from the elderly couple, listening to Mrs. Peterson speak lovingly about her grandchildren in California. "They were headed to see their grandchildren," she whispered. "Such a tragedy," Martha agreed, squeezing Sophia's hand. "The outlaws took the strongbox and 2 horses. Now, tell me your name, dear, and what brings you to these parts." "Sophia Oliver. I'm a nurse from Boston, answering the advertisement for medical help in Winslow." She gingerly touched the bandage on her forehead. "I have credentials in my satchel." "Don't you worry about that now. Your things are safe. Ethan recovered what he could from the wreck." Martha poured water from a pitcher into a glass and helped Sophia take a sip. "We've sent word to town about the survivors. Dr. Jenkins will be glad to hear you're still coming. That man's been working himself to exhaustion since his assistant left." The bedroom door opened, and Ethan Hayes stepped in, removing his hat in one smooth motion. Seeing him properly now, Sophia was struck by his appearance, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. A faint scar ran along his jawline, disappearing into several days' worth of stubble. "Miss Oliver's awake, I see," he said, nodding to her. "How are you feeling, madam?" "Better, thank you, Mr. Hayes, and thank you for your help. I shudder to think what might have happened if you hadn't arrived when you did." "Just doing what anybody would," he replied, shifting slightly as if uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Sheriff Douglas and his deputies are tracking the gang. Sounds like the Blackwater boys might be responsible. They've hit 2 other stages this month." Martha tutted. "Those outlaws are getting bolder. Well, you'll be safe here until you're well enough to travel to town. The doctor says he'll come out tomorrow to check on you and Frank." After Martha left to prepare dinner, Ethan lingered awkwardly by the door. "Is there anything you need, Miss Oliver?" Sophia attempted a smile despite her pain. "I'd like to check on the others if I may. I'm a nurse after all." Ethan's eyebrows rose. "You should rest first. Doc Jenkins gave you laudanum for the pain." "I've been trained to work through discomfort, Mr. Hayes. Besides, if I'm to assist Dr. Jenkins in Winslow, I should make myself useful now." A hint of admiration flickered in his eyes. "Stubborn as a mule, aren't you? My father would say you'd fit right in out here." He offered his arm. "All right then, Nurse Oliver. I'll help you to the bunkhouse, but if you start swooning, you're coming straight back to bed." With Ethan's steady support, Sophia made her way outside. The rocking H spread before her a sprawling ranch house, a large barn, corrals, and outbuildings arranged in a practical manner. In the distance, mountains rose against the impossibly blue sky, and cattle dotted the grasslands. "Your family has a beautiful place," she commented, trying to distract herself from the dizziness threatening her balance. "Been in the Hayes family for 20 years. My father built it from nothing after the war." Pride colored his voice. "Not as fancy as what you're used to back east, I reckon." "It's magnificent in its own right," she replied honestly. "There's something to be said for spaces built with purpose and care." At the bunkhouse, Sophia found Frank Wilkes, the stagecoach driver, fevered from his gunshot wound. Using supplies from her recovered medical bag, she cleaned and redressed the injury, instructing one of the ranch hands on how to monitor his condition until the doctor arrived. James Turner, the mail carrier, was in better spirits despite his splinted leg. "Miss Oliver, thought you were a goner for sure when I saw you go flying out of that coach." "I didn't fly, Mr. Turner, I crawled," she corrected with a small smile. "And fortunately, Mr. Hayes was there to assist me." Turner grinned. "Lucky timing, that. The Hayes men have a reputation for showing up when needed most." He winked at Ethan, who cleared his throat uncomfortably. By the time they returned to the main house, Sophia was exhausted, her head throbbing anew. Ethan noticed her faltering steps and wordlessly offered his arm again, his strength a welcome support. "You should have said you were struggling," he chided gently. "I'm fine," she insisted, though her voice betrayed her. "Stubborn," he repeated, but there was warmth in his tone. "My mother's the same way. Broke her wrist last winter and still insisted on making Christmas dinner for 15 ranch hands." Martha had prepared a hearty meal, and despite her fatigue, Sophia found herself ravenous. She met Robert Hayes, Ethan's father, a man of few words but watchful eyes, who greeted her with courtesy before peppering her with practical questions about her journey and plans in Winslow. Town's growing fast since the railroad came through, Robert explained. Brings opportunity, but trouble too. Doctor's been swamped. Good thing you're coming along when you are. After dinner, exhaustion claimed Sophia completely. Martha helped her back to the bedroom, where she fell into a deep sleep almost immediately. The next 3 days passed in a blur of recovery. Dr. Jenkins visited, confirming Sophia had suffered a concussion but would heal fully with rest. He was a kindly man in his 60s, clearly overworked, and visibly relieved to learn of Sophia's qualifications. "You're a godsend, Miss Oliver," he declared. "I've been trying to entice a trained nurse to Winslow for nearly a year. Most young ladies aren't keen on relocating to such rough country. I've always believed in going where I'm needed, Doctor. After losing both my parents to influenza, despite having 3 physicians in attendance, I decided proper medical care shouldn't be a privilege of location." The doctor nodded approvingly. "Well, once you're recovered, I look forward to showing you our little clinic. It's humble compared to your Boston hospitals, but we make do." As her strength returned, Sophia found herself drawn to the rhythm of ranch life. Each morning, she'd watch from the porch as Ethan and the cowboys rode out at dawn, returning dusty and tired in the evenings. Martha showed her around the kitchen garden and henhouse, explaining how they managed to keep fresh food on the table year-round. Ethan, she noticed, kept a respectful distance, though she often felt his gaze following her when he thought she wouldn't notice. His kindness extended to everyone around him the way he spoke gently to the horses, patiently instructed younger ranch hands, and deferred to his parents' wisdom while clearly carrying much of the ranch's responsibility on his capable shoulders. On her 5th day at the Rocking H, Sophia sat on the front porch enjoying the cooler evening air after another scorching day. Ethan approached, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Mother says you're heading to town tomorrow," he said, offering her one of the cups. "Yes, Doctor. Jenkins thinks I'm well enough to travel, and I've imposed on your family's hospitality long enough." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "I can't thank you all enough for everything you've done." Ethan settled into the chair beside hers. "No imposition. It's been nice having someone new to talk to. Gets mighty repetitive hearing the same stories from the boys year after year." The setting sun cast golden light across the ranch, turning ordinary scenes into something magical. A comfortable silence fell between them as they sipped their coffee. "Will you be staying in Winslow permanently?" Ethan finally asked, his voice carefully neutral. "I've committed to a year initially. After that," she shrugged, "I suppose it depends on how well I adjust to life out here. It's different from Boston, that's certain. Rougher in some ways, but there's a freedom to it that gets in your blood." "I've noticed that already," Sophia admitted. "There's something compelling about the vastness of the land, the way the sky seems endless. In Boston, buildings and people crowd together so tightly you can barely breathe sometimes." Ethan nodded. "Never been east myself, but I imagine I'd feel caged there." "You were born here?" she asked. "In a tent, actually," he replied with a hint of a smile. "My parents were traveling from Texas with everything they owned in a wagon. Mother went into labor 2 weeks early, right where our barn stands now. Father said it was a sign this was where we were meant to be." Sophia smiled at the image. "Your mother must be remarkably strong." "Strongest person I know," Ethan agreed. "She taught me that real strength isn't about how much you can lift or how fast you can ride, but how much you can endure while keeping your dignity intact." Wise words. Hayes women usually are. He glanced at her from beneath the brim of his hat. "You remind me of her a bit. Coming all this way alone, tending to others even while injured yourself, takes a special kind of courage." The compliment warmed her more than it should have. "I don't know about courage. Stubbornness, perhaps, as you've pointed out. His laugh was unexpected and rich, transforming his serious face. Fair enough. Either way, Winslow's lucky to have you. When morning came, Sophia found herself oddly reluctant to leave. The Hayes family had prepared a packed lunch for her journey, and Robert insisted on driving her to town himself in their wagon. Ethan would do it, Martha explained as she helped Sophia gather her belongings. But he's riding with the men to check the northern fence line today. He asked me to wish you well in town. Disappointment fluttered in Sophia's chest, though she quickly dismissed it as foolish. She'd known the kind cowboy less than a week, hardly long enough to develop any meaningful attachment. The journey to Winslow took most of the morning. Robert Hayes proved a quiet companion, offering occasional comments about landmarks or the history of the area. As they approached town, the landscape changed from open rangeland to more settled homesteads, and finally to the bustling frontier town itself. Winslow had grown substantially since the railroad's arrival. The main street featured wooden boardwalks fronting an assortment of businesses: a general store, saloon, hotel, and various shops. Men in dusty work clothes mingled with better-dressed merchants, while women in practical dresses hurried about their errands. The sound of hammering came from the far end of town, where new construction was underway. "There's the clinic," Robert pointed to a whitewashed building with green shutters. "Doc lives upstairs, but Martha mentioned he's arranged lodging for you with Widow Peabody. She keeps a clean, respectable boarding house for single ladies. Doctor." Jenkins emerged from the clinic as they pulled up, wiping his hands on a towel. "Miss Oliver, right on time. I've just finished setting a broken arm and could use a second pair of trained hands for the splinting." Robert helped her down from the wagon. "I'll take your trunk to Mrs. Peabody's and let her know you've arrived. Doc can point you there when you're ready." Sophia thanked him warmly, then followed Dr. Jenkins inside, immediately falling into the familiar routine of medical work. The patient was a young ranch hand who had fallen from a horse, and she expertly assisted with the splinting while making quiet conversation to distract him from the pain. The remainder of the day passed quickly as Dr. Jenkins showed her around the clinic, explaining his organizational systems and introducing her to his most regular patients. By evening, she was exhausted but satisfied, feeling she had made the right decision in coming to Arizona. Mrs. Peabody's boarding house proved to be a tidy two-story home on a side street, housing 3 other single women: a schoolteacher, a seamstress, and a young widow who worked at the general store. Her room was small but pleasant, with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a small writing desk beneath the window. Days turned into weeks as Sophia established herself in Winslow. The work was demanding but fulfilling, with ailments ranging from minor injuries to serious conditions requiring all her training and resourcefulness. Word of a competent female nurse spread quickly, and soon women who had been reluctant to seek medical attention were coming to the clinic for problems they had previously endured in silence. Ethan Hayes visited town occasionally for supplies or banking, always stopping by the clinic to inquire after her welfare. These brief encounters became highlights that Sophia anticipated more eagerly than she cared to admit. Each visit revealed more about the thoughtful cowboy: his dry humor, his sense of responsibility, his unwavering integrity. On a crisp October morning, Sophia was organizing supplies when the clinic door burst open. 2 men carried a third between them, blood soaking through his shirt. "Knife fight at the saloon," one explained breathlessly. "Pete here got the worst of it. Dr. Jenkins was out delivering a baby, so Sophia took charge, directing them to lay the injured man on the examination table. She cut away his blood-soaked shirt to reveal a deep slash across his abdomen. "I need hot water, clean towels, and my suture kit," she instructed the men, who looked at each other uncertainly. "You gonna fix him, madam? Shouldn't we wait for the doc?" "I'm a trained surgical nurse," Sophia replied firmly, already cleaning the wound. "If we wait, your friend will bleed to death. Now, will you help me save him, or shall I do it alone?" They scrambled to assist, fetching what she needed. For the next hour, Sophia worked methodically, cleaning and suturing the wound while monitoring the patient's breathing and pulse. When she finally tied off the last stitch, her apron was spattered with blood, but the bleeding had stopped. "He'll need careful watching for infection," she told the men as she bandaged the wound. "One of you should stay with him. If his skin becomes hot to touch, or the wound starts seeping yellow fluid, fetch me immediately." Dr. Jenkins returned as she was washing her hands, eyebrows rising at the sight of the unconscious patient. "I see you've had excitement while I was gone. Knife wound?" "Yes, doctor. Approximately 8 inches long, fairly deep but missing vital organs. I've sutured it closed and administered laudanum for the pain." The doctor examined her work with approval. "Clean stitches, proper spacing. Couldn't have done better myself." He placed a paternal hand on her shoulder. "You're proving invaluable, Miss Oliver. I'm beginning to wonder how I managed without you." The incident elevated Sophia's standing in the community. Women had already accepted her, but now the men of Winslow regarded her with newfound respect. Even the saloon owner tipped his hat when she passed, having heard how she saved his customer's life. November brought cooler weather and preparations for Thanksgiving. Mrs. Peabody planned an elaborate dinner for her boarders and had invited several respectable single gentlemen from town, including the banker, Mr. Wilson, who had shown particular interest in Sophia. "He's quite taken with you," Mrs. Peabody confided as they prepared pumpkin pies. "A good match, if you don't mind my saying so. Secure position, owns his own home and not yet 40. Sophia made a non-committal noise. Mr. Wilson was indeed a respectable gentleman, but his conversation centered exclusively on banking regulations and the superiority of Eastern civilization topics that increasingly failed to engage her interest. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Ethan arrived at the clinic with a young ranch hand who had developed a persistent cough. While Sophia examined the boy, Ethan explained they'd been moving cattle to winter pastures when the illness worsened. "Thought it best to get him looked at before it turns to pneumonia," he concluded. After prescribing rest and a syrup for the cough, Sophia watched as Ethan gently helped the boy back to their wagon. He returned a moment later, hat in hand. "Mother asked me to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner at the ranch," he said. "She says Mrs. Peabody's welcome too if she'd like to come, though we understand she may have her own plans." The invitation caught Sophia by surprise. "That's very kind of her. I'd be delighted to accept, but I wouldn't want to impose on a family celebration." "No imposition. Mother enjoys company and she's taken a liking to you." He shifted slightly. "We all have." Something in his tone made her glance up sharply, but his expression revealed nothing beyond polite interest. "Please thank her for me. I'll speak with Mrs. Peabody, but I would very much like to come." Mrs. Peabody was understanding, if a bit disappointed. "The Hayes family is highly respected," she acknowledged, "and their Thanksgiving celebrations are legendary. Robert Hayes spares no expense for the occasion." On Thanksgiving morning, Sophia dressed with extra care in her best burgundy dress with lace collar and cuffs. Ethan arrived promptly at 10 o'clock, driving a polished buggy rather than the usual work wagon. "Mother insisted I bring the good transportation," he explained, looking somewhat self-conscious in a clean black coat and freshly trimmed hair. Said a lady shouldn't have to ride in a feed wagon on a holiday. The day was gloriously clear, the air crisp and fragrant with the scent of pine from the distant mountains. As they left town behind, Sophia felt a familiar sense of liberation that always came with the open landscape. "You look different today," Ethan observed after they had traveled some distance in comfortable silence. "Is it the dress?" she asked. "I don't often have occasion to wear my finer things." "Not just that, you seem at ease out here now. When I first met you, there was a tightness about you, like you were braced against something." His perception startled her. "I suppose I was. Everything was so foreign, the landscape, the customs, even the air felt different, but now it feels a bit like home," he suggested. "Yes," she realized. "It does." The rocking H was transformed for the holiday. Martha had decorated with dried autumn flowers and cornucopias, and delicious aromas filled the air. Several neighboring ranching families had already arrived, along with the Hayes Ranch hands, creating a festive atmosphere. Martha embraced Sophia warmly. "I'm so pleased you could join us. Come, let me introduce you to everyone." The day passed in a blur of good food, laughter, and conversation. After dinner, some of the younger people organized games in the yard, while the older folks settled onto the porch with coffee. Sophia found herself drawn into a lively horseshoe competition, partnered with Ethan against his cousin Daniel and Daniel's wife, Rebecca. "I should warn you, I've never played this game before," Sophia admitted as Ethan handed her a horseshoe. "Just aim for the stake," he advised. "It's mostly luck anyway, despite what Daniel claims about his superior skill." His teasing put her at ease, and though her first few throws went wild, she eventually managed to ring the stake, earning cheers from the onlookers and a proud grin from Ethan that warmed her more than the afternoon sun. As twilight approached, the guests gradually departed. Sophia stood on the porch, watching the last wagons disappear down the long drive. "Did you enjoy the day?" Ethan asked, joining her. "Very much. Your mother is a wonderful hostess, and everyone made me feel so welcome." "Good, I was hoping you would." He hesitated. "Would you like to see the sunset from the ridge? It's a family tradition on Thanksgiving, watching the day end from the highest point on the ranch." Sophia agreed, and they walked together past the barn to a path that wound up a gentle slope. At the top, a flat outcropping of rock provided a perfect viewing spot. The horizon was already blazing with orange and pink as the sun began its descent. "It's breathtaking," Sophia whispered, afraid to break the magical silence. "Worth the climb, worth everything." They stood side by side as the colors deepened, and the first stars appeared in the darkening eastern sky. When the air grew chill, Ethan placed his coat around her shoulders, his hands lingering briefly. "Sophia," he said, her name sounding different in his voice than it ever had before. "I've been wanting to ask. That is, I was wondering if you might permit me to call on you properly when you're in town." Her heart quickened. "You mean as a suitor?" "Yes." His directness was refreshing after the veiled courtship rituals she'd known in Boston. "I know we come from different worlds, and you might have grander prospects, but I find myself thinking about you more than is probably sensible." The honest admission touched her deeply. "I would like that very much, Ethan." His smile in the fading light was worth 1,000 sunsets. Winter descended on northern Arizona with sudden ferocity. Heavy snow isolated Winslow for days at a time, but between storms, Ethan faithfully rode into town to visit Sophia. Their courtship progressed steadily, with chaperoned outings to church socials and quiet conversations by Mrs. Peabody's parlor fire, Mr. Wilson, the banker, was visibly disappointed by Sophia's new attachment but remained cordial. "Can't blame a man for recognizing quality," he told Ethan during a chance encounter at the general store. "You're a lucky fellow, Hayes." "Don't I know it?" Ethan agreed, tipping his hat to the banker. As Christmas approached, Dr. Jenkins fell ill with bronchitis, leaving Sophia to manage the clinic alone. The responsibilities were overwhelming at times, but she found herself rising to the challenge, earning deeper respect from the townspeople. Ethan arrived during one particularly busy afternoon, bringing supplies from the ranch and finding Sophia tending to 3 patients simultaneously: a child with earache, a pregnant woman experiencing false labor, and a minor with a crushed finger. Without being asked, he removed his coat and rolled up his sleeves. "What can I do?" Sophia directed him to help the minor, showing him how to clean the wound while she finished examining the child. They worked together seamlessly, and by the time the clinic emptied, Sophia realized they had functioned like partners who had collaborated for years rather than mere hours. "You would have made a fine doctor," she observed as they cleaned up afterward. "Nah, just following orders from someone who knows what they're doing." He wrapped a protective arm around her waist. "But I like that we work well together." The acknowledgement of their compatibility hung between them, full of unspoken possibilities. Christmas Eve brought Sophia back to the Rocking H, where she was now treated as family rather than guest. The Hayes home glowed with candlelight and evergreen boughs, and presents were exchanged with genuine affection. After the evening meal, Ethan asked Sophia to walk with him to the barn. The night was clear and cold, stars brilliant in the black velvet sky. Inside the barn, lanterns cast a golden glow over the stalls where horses nickered softly. "I have another gift for you," Ethan said, suddenly seeming nervous. "Something I wanted to give you privately." From his pocket, he withdrew a small leather pouch and placed it in her hand. Inside, Sophia found a delicate gold ring set with a small but perfect pearl. "It was my grandmother's," Ethan explained. "My father gave it to my mother when they decided to build this ranch together, and now—" "Sophia, I'm asking if you'll build a life with me." Tears sprang to her eyes. "Are you certain I'm still new here in my work?" "I've never been more certain of anything," he interrupted. "I love you, Sophia. I think I started falling for you the moment I lifted you from that overturned wagon. And I know your work is important. I wouldn't ask you to give it up." "You wouldn't?" This surprised her. Most men expected a wife to abandon her profession. "Of course not. You're a healer. That's part of who you are." He took her hands in his. "The ranch is only 7 miles from town. We could make it work. You could continue with Dr. Jenkins. Perhaps not every day, but regularly enough to make a difference." The thoughtfulness of his proposal touched her deeply. "You've considered everything, haven't you?" "I've had months to think about it," he admitted with a smile. "So what do you say? Will you marry me, Sophia Oliver?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, I will marry you, Ethan Hayes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into a kiss that promised a lifetime of partnership and passion. Their engagement announcement was met with congratulations from both the town and the ranching community. Dr. Jenkins was particularly supportive, suggesting a flexible arrangement that would allow Sophia to continue her nursing work 3 days a week after marriage. "I couldn't bear to lose you entirely," the elderly doctor confessed. "You've become essential to this practice." The wedding was planned for April, when spring would begin to soften the landscape and travel would be easier for guests. Martha Hayes and Mrs. Peabody collaborated on arrangements with enthusiasm, while Sophia focused on preparing for her new role as a rancher's wife without abandoning her medical calling. Winter slowly released its grip on the land as February gave way to March. The snow receded, revealing tender green shoots beneath. Sophia divided her time between the clinic and the ranch, learning from Martha about household management while sharing her own knowledge of modern medical practices. One evening in late March, Sophia and Ethan sat on the porch swing at the ranch, discussing their future home. "Father's offered us the old foreman's cabin to start," Ethan explained. "It needs work, but it's solidly built and we can expand it as needed. It's near enough to the main house for convenience but far enough for privacy." "It sounds perfect," Sophia agreed, leaning against his shoulder. "Though I admit, I'm a bit nervous about balancing everything, being a wife, working at the clinic, learning ranch life." Ethan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We'll figure it out together. That's what partnership means." As their wedding day approached, Sophia received an unexpected letter from Boston, her former supervisor at Massachusetts General Hospital, learning of her upcoming marriage, offered congratulations and enclosed a substantial wedding gift, a complete set of modern medical instruments. Dr. Reynolds writes that these are the latest designs from Philadelphia, Sophia told Ethan, carefully unwrapping the gleaming tools. "With these, we could handle more complex procedures right here in Winslow." "See," Ethan smiled, "the world's conspiring to help you fulfill both your callings." The wedding day dawned clear and mild, with wildflowers dotting the pastures around the rocking H. Guests arrived throughout the morning: townspeople, neighboring ranchers, and even the stagecoach driver and mail carrier whose lives Sophia had helped save after the attack. Martha had transformed the ranch's large front yard into a wedding venue, with rows of chairs facing an arbor twined with early spring blossoms. Sophia wore a gown of ivory silk that Mrs. Peabody and the town seamstress had labored over for weeks, with her chestnut hair arranged in an elegant style crowned by a circlet of small white flowers. As she walked toward Ethan, who waited beneath the arbor looking handsomer than ever in his new black suit, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The attack on the stagecoach, which had seemed such a disaster, had instead become the first chapter in an unexpected love story. Reverend Thomas from Winslow performed the ceremony, speaking eloquently about the strength found in true partnership and the blessing of finding one's purpose alongside one's heart's desire. When Ethan slipped a gold band onto her finger to join the pearl engagement ring, his hands were steady, his eyes filled with unwavering commitment. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the Reverend declared to enthusiastic applause. "You may kiss your bride." Ethan's kiss was tender yet passionate, a perfect balance of respect and desire that promised everything Sophia had ever hoped to find in marriage. The celebration continued well into the evening, with a feast served on long tables in the yard, followed by dancing to fiddle music in the cleared barn. As twilight deepened, Ethan led his bride to a decorated wagon that would take them to Flagstaff for a brief honeymoon. "Happy, Mrs. Hayes?" he asked as they settled into the wagon seat. "Completely," she assured him, nestling against his side as they waved goodbye to their cheering friends and family. Their honeymoon, though short, was blissful days exploring the mountain town of Flagstaff and nights discovering the intimate aspects of marriage that proved as harmonious as their public partnership. They returned to the rocking H refreshed and ready to begin their life together. The foreman's cabin had been transformed during their absence. The Hayes family and ranch hands had worked tirelessly to prepare it: fresh paint, new curtains sewn by Martha, a pantry stocked with essentials, and even a small office space where Sophia could maintain her medical records. "It's perfect," she whispered as they crossed the threshold together. Life settled into a rhythm that suited them both. Sophia worked at the clinic 3 days a week, riding to town on a gentle mare Ethan had trained especially for her. The other days, she helped with ranch tasks or attended to occasional medical needs among the ranch hands and neighboring homesteads. By summer, Dr. Jenkins had convinced the town council to expand the clinic, adding a proper surgery room equipped with Sophia's Boston instruments. The doctor's aging hands were growing less steady for delicate procedures, and he increasingly relied on Sophia's surgical skills. "You've become the best thing that ever happened to Winslow's medical care," he told her proudly after they successfully removed an infected appendix from the blacksmith's son. "And Hayes was smart enough to let you keep doing it." Autumn brought news that Martha had long been anticipating. Sophia was expecting their first child, due in the early spring. Ethan received the news with joyful amazement, lifting Sophia off her feet in celebration, before setting her down with sudden concern for her condition. "I'm pregnant, not fragile," she assured him, laughing at his protective instincts. As her pregnancy progressed, Sophia gradually reduced her clinic hours but continued to consult on difficult cases. Dr. Jenkins hired a young assistant, Thomas Ford, who was eager to learn from both the doctor and Sophia. "You've created something lasting here," Ethan observed one evening as Sophia described training the new assistant. "A proper medical tradition that will continue even when you're busy with our children." "Our children and my nursing," she corrected gently. "I don't intend to abandon either calling." He kissed her forehead. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Their son, James Robert Hayes, was born on a bright April morning in 1880, with Dr. Jenkins and Martha in attendance. The birth was straightforward, and Sophia recovered quickly, finding motherhood another challenge she embraced wholeheartedly. Little James thrived under the loving attention of his parents and extended family. By his first birthday, he was toddling determinedly around the ranch, showing an early affinity for the horses that made his father beam with pride. "He's a Hayes, all right," Robert declared, watching the boy fearlessly pat the nose of a gentle mare. Life continued to evolve for the growing family. When James was 2, the sudden death of Dr. Jenkins from a heart ailment left Winslow in need of a full-time physician. Thomas Ford was still completing his medical training, and the town council turned to Sophia. "We know you're a nurse, not a doctor," Mayor Wilson explained at a special meeting, "but you've performed surgeries that even Jenkins hesitated to attempt. Until we can secure another physician, would you consider taking primary responsibility for the clinic?" The request was unprecedented, a woman serving as the town's principal medical provider. Ethan, seated beside her at the meeting, squeezed her hand supportively. "It's your decision," he told her later as they discussed the proposal. "The ranch is doing well enough that we could hire more help if you need to be in town more often. James and I would miss you, but we'd manage." After careful consideration, Sophia agreed to oversee the clinic 4 days a week, with the understanding that she would train local women as assistants and work to recruit a permanent doctor. The arrangement proved successful beyond anyone's expectations. With Ethan's support at home and the community's backing in town, Sophia developed a medical practice that combined her Boston training with practical adaptations to frontier needs. In the summer of 1883, Sophia gave birth to their daughter, Elizabeth Martha Hayes. Unlike her brother's straightforward arrival, Elizabeth's birth was difficult, requiring all of Sophia's medical knowledge and her assistant's steady hands to ensure both mother and daughter survived. "I've never been so frightened," Ethan admitted afterward, cradling their newborn daughter while Sophia rested. "The thought of losing either of you." "But you didn't," she reminded him weakly. "And now you have a daughter who's already showing your stubborn determination." The experience deepened their appreciation for the fragility of life and the strength of their partnership. As Sophia recovered, Ethan took on additional childcare responsibilities, often bringing young James to the fields with him while balancing Elizabeth in one strong arm. By the time Elizabeth was walking, a new doctor had finally arrived in Winslow, Dr. Michael Harrison, a progressive young physician from Philadelphia who respected Sophia's experience and was eager to work alongside her rather than replace her. Mrs. Hayes has established exceptional standards of care, he announced at his introduction to the town council. I would consider it a privilege to continue the practice she has built, with her ongoing involvement as she chooses. The arrangement proved ideal. Dr. Harrison took primary responsibility for the clinic, allowing Sophia to reduce her hours to 2 days a week while maintaining her involvement in surgical cases and women's health issues. This balance gave her more time with her growing children while preserving the professional identity she valued. The Hayes family flourished alongside the expanding Rocking H Ranch. Robert gradually transferred more management responsibilities to Ethan, who implemented innovative ranching methods while respecting traditional practices. Their cattle operation grew, weathering the market fluctuations through diversification and careful planning. In 1887, a devastating wildfire threatened the northern portion of the ranch during an unusually dry summer. The entire Hayes family mobilized alongside neighbors and townspeople to fight the blaze. Sophia established a medical station to treat burns and smoke inhalation, while Ethan led firefighting efforts that eventually saved most of their grazing land. "We've faced worse," Ethan reminded her as they surveyed the damage afterward, exhausted but grateful that no lives had been lost. "Remember that stagecoach attack where we first met? This is just another challenge we'll overcome together." The following spring, at age 9, James suffered a broken arm after falling from his first full-sized horse. Sophia set the bone herself, with Dr. Harrison assisting, while Ethan distracted the boy with stories of his own childhood injuries. "Your mother fixed me up the very first day we met," he told James. "I had a splinter the size of a fence post." "You did not," Sophia protested, fighting a smile. "You didn't have so much as a scratch." "Well, my heart was injured," Ethan insisted with a wink at his son. "Pierced clean through at the sight of your mother crawling so bravely from that wreckage." By 1890, Winslow had grown into a substantial town with a proper hospital replacing the original clinic. Sophia served on the hospital board while maintaining her part-time practice focusing on women's and children's health. Her reputation extended throughout the territory, with complex cases sometimes traveling considerable distances to benefit from her expertise. That same year, Robert Hayes suffered a stroke that left him partially paralyzed. The family rallied around him, with Martha providing primary care and Sophia developing therapeutic exercises that gradually restored much of his mobility. "Never thought I'd be grateful for having a nurse in the family," Robert grumbled during a particularly challenging therapy session, then softened with unusual emotion. "You're a blessing, Sophia, to all of us." The Hayes family celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary in 1898 with a gathering that reflected the deep roots they had established in the community. James, now 18, had grown into a thoughtful young man who combined his father's ranching instincts with his mother's analytical mind. He planned to attend the Territorial University to study modern agricultural methods before returning to help manage the Rocking H. Elizabeth, 15 and bright as the Arizona sun, showed a natural inclination toward medicine, often accompanying Sophia to the hospital and absorbing knowledge with remarkable retention. Like mother, like daughter, doctor, Harrison observed after watching Elizabeth calmly assist during a minor procedure. As the century drew to a close, Sophia and Ethan often found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them together and the life they had built. "You ever regret it?" Ethan asked one evening as they sat on the porch of their home, which had been expanded over the years to accommodate their growing family and standing in the community. Coming west, marrying a dusty cowboy instead of some cultured Boston gentleman. Sophia considered the question seriously. "I've never regretted a single day," she finally answered. "Even the difficult ones, perhaps especially those because they showed us what we could overcome together." She took his hand, still strong but now bearing the marks of years of hard work. "Do you remember what you said when you lifted me from that overturned wagon?" "I've got you now," he recalled, smiling at the memory. "You did," Sophia confirmed, "and you've had me ever since." As the stars appeared above the land they both loved, Ethan drew his wife close, grateful for the twist of fate that had brought a Boston nurse to an Arizona trail and into his waiting arms. The journey had not always been easy, but together they had built something remarkable: a loving family, a prosperous ranch, and a legacy of healing that would continue long after them through their children and the community they had helped shape. "I've got you now," he repeated softly, the promise as true after 20 years as it had been on that fateful day. "And always will."